Is Frank Gore a first ballot Hall of Famer? I mean, I don't think you'd ever say he was the best running back in the league at any point. But man, what a career he's had, and he's still playing, technically, sort of. What do you say, Jack?
Yeah, I definitely think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's been a top level running back almost throughout his whole career. Came in and people didn't really expect a whole lot out of him, and he just excelled from the very get go, and he's still playing at a high level now with this kid in college. So definitely somebody that I think should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Definitely.
I think he deserves to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. Will he? I'm not sure, because I think it's going to depend on when he officially retires, right? Is he going to do the whole Jerry Rice thing where he goes into camp next year and tries to make a team and then doesn't and then retires at that point? Because don't forget, who's retiring this year? Who will he be competing with on that first ballot? Likely Drew Brees, even though I don't think that's official, right? Phillip Rivers, which is official. Who knows? Maybe even an outside chance Tom Brady retires if he wins the Super Bowl.
Maybe Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, absolutely. He'd be going up against all these guys. And then don't forget, last year there were some really good guys who didn't make it, who were finalists last year, guys like Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, etc. So I think the timing of when he retires is going to dictate it. But of course, he certainly deserves to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think a comparable for him would be a guy like Adrian James, who was a finalist last year. In my opinion, Frank Gore had a better career than Adrian James, and Adrian James just missed it by a hair because he was a finalist last time around.
Yeah, Grant, you took my example, Adrian Peterson. If they exit the same year, I think that hurts Frank Gore just because Adrian Peterson was a flashy name, and Frank Gore, although especially in the Bay Area, we're familiar with what he did, he wasn't a flashy guy. He was never the number one running back in the NFL because he competed with LaDainian Tomlinson at the first half of his career, Adrian Peterson and Chris Johnson for the middle part. That there's big names in that scenario. But Frank Gore will make the Hall of Fame. It's just first ballot might be hard. Pro Football Reference has his Hall of Fame monitor at 100.05, and their average is 106.99. I still think he makes it just because of how important he was and his longevity. I think that's really impressive in the NFL, just being a running back and being able to play as long as he did. And he's been solid for 85% of his career. Maybe the last couple of years have been a little shaky, but that's to be expected. I think he's still a Hall of Fame worthy running back.
Yeah, it's interesting to compare him to a guy like Patrick Willis. Like when Patrick Willis was in the league, he was the best inside linebacker like almost every year. But he only played, 7 years? He didn't have the longevity. And Frank Gore did. He was never the best running back in the league, but he's still in the league. And his career stacks up with Emmitt Smith's. And I think actually, if I were a Hall of Fame voter, I would put more weight into the longevity than being the best for half a decade. Because, I mean, it's great to be the best for half a decade, but what you're trying to achieve is long-term greatness. Frank Gore did that. That being said, I don't think he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer, whether or not he deserves to be one. I think he'll probably go in on the second or third ballot because he played on the West Coast, because he wasn't Adrian Peterson and he wasn't ever the top guy. But he'll make it, I would say, no later than the third ballot. And that's okay.